guys seem to be having a blast on the panel last
Yeah.
night. So big reunion with your alumni.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
That was great. That was the first Chainsaw 2 panel I've ever been on. I think it went really, really well. Joe Bob Briggs did a great job of moderating, and did a great job of shooting it, I hear. And what was especially fun for me was not only to be with my Chainsaw 2 alumni, but also to sell my little chop top dummy that I had up on stage there.
Amazing.
I know, that was great. And that certainly, that paid for this hat. I went right over to the mall when I got home, and I went to the little hat store, and they were able to make hats for you. And so I had a beautiful ear of corn, and the word corn bugs in green script below.
Custom-made hat.
Custom-made corn bugs hat. So this makes everything worthwhile.
So you're best known as Chop Top, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. How did you get that gig?
Well, I got that gig by falling in love or falling in fear with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw that for the first time on the end of a double bill with Enter the Dragon in the Combat Zone of Boston in 1975. And I was completely freaked out by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And really scared me. I mean, really deep. And I was just graduated from college. I ran a horror film series or society in college. Went to Yale. I was a smart guy. Always loved horror movies. And for some reason, in spite of all of that, or because of all of that, Chainsaw freaked me out. And I decided, in my very dubious wisdom, that the best way to get over the fear of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was to see it a bunch more times. I did that. I ended up seeing it about 12 or 13 times. And instead of, I thought maybe I'd become familiar with it and go, okay, here's the generator, oh, there's the chicken in the cage, there's, oh, here comes Leatherface. Each time, instead of getting over it, it just kind of pounded that wedge deeper into my psyche. And finally, I was working on a ranch in Wyoming, and it was maybe 84, maybe the summer of 84, and I was working with a kid who was a teenage kid and who would have what I called these sugar deliriums. He would start packing Mellow Yellow and popsicles and Oreos and candy bars, and then we'd work under the hot sun doing ranch work, and he would go into these weird sugar trances. They were like speed trips, and he would start spitting out all these weird phrases like snippets from radio commercials and top 40 songs, and just all this gobbledygook would come out of him. And all of a sudden, I learned to turn a deaf ear to the kid, and all of a sudden, one day we were chopping wood or something like that, and he was going, Captain Crunch, and all of a sudden he went, Texas Chainsaw Manicure, and then went back into whatever his blither was, and I went, oh, Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And I just had this vision of, somebody going into a beauty parlor and asking for a manicure and Leatherface and all this stuff. So I went back to my bunkhouse and wrote down like a little 5-minute scenario. I came back to New York, where I was living, New York City, and gathered some friends and called in some favors, and had made a little 5-minute video called the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And I edited it at the facilities of Saturday Night Live, a place called Broadway Video. Had some cool people involved in the production of it and the post-production. And I ended up with a big bill and nowhere to sell the thing. So it was a financial fiasco. I ended up getting a job in a restaurant. I went down, I was a waiter. It was kind of like a public expiation or atonement of guilt. And anyway, I was also working as a writer for Omni magazine, Science magazine back then. And Omni sent me out to Los Angeles to cover the making of the Space Odyssey sequel, 2010. And so I came out and I, looked up some of my old buddies from prep school and went out and had dinner with my friends or whatever, and I brought along a copy of the Texas Chainsaw Manicure just to amuse them, and I put it on. My buddy, who's a screenwriter, loved it, and he said, you know what, my partner and I have an office right down the hall from Tobe Hooper. Would you like me to walk this into him? And I said, sure, that'd be great. So my buddy, who by the way wrote Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Wild Wild West, a lot of cool movies, big time movie writer. Believe it or not, his name is Peter Seaman. And anyway, he walked the Manicure into Tobe Hooper back in 1984. And he also, my friend Pete, also got me Toby's home number, I guess from a secretary. He said, don't tell him where you got this, but in a week, call him up and follow up the Manicure. So I did. I went back to New York, I called Toby, I said, and he answered the phone, which I've since come to realize is a miracle, because he hardly ever answers the phone. But he answered the phone, and I said, hi, I'm Bill Moseley, and I was the one that made the Chainsaw Manicure. He said, oh man, I love the Manicure, Bill. And I went, oh good, wow. Which was all I needed to hear. If that was the end of it, that would have been great, because nobody seemed to like it. At least they weren't supporting it by buying it or whatever. And I had suffered a lot for this that vision, and Toby loved it, and so that kind of made it all cool. And he said, he went on to say, he said, who played the hitchhiker character? Now I had actually given myself a little cameo as the hitchhiker. I had like the purple wine mark on my cheek, and at the end of the manicure, my wife, who gets a manicure from Leatherface, comes out with her hair all done and beautiful nails. And she goes, honey, look, I got the best manicure ever. And I'm in a truck, and I look like the hitchhiker, and I'm behind the wheel, and I go, hey, that's great, honey, we should celebrate with some head cheese. And I actually went out, which I don't encourage young filmmakers to do, but I bought a lump of head cheese, and which doesn't really look very exciting, but it's funky. And during one of the several takes of that particular shot, I actually licked the head cheese, which was above and beyond the call. Anyway, that's all I did, and Toby asked me in our conversation who played the hitchhiker character. And I said, well, that was me. And he said, well, Bill, if I ever do a sequel, I'll keep you in mind. And please stay in touch. And I went, well, so, okay. So I sent him a postcard right after our conversation, and I didn't hear from him for a couple of years. And, I just figured that was kind of, nice sentiment that was pretty much it. And one night the phone rang. I was in New York. I think, it sounds maybe dramatic, maybe it wasn't exactly the same day, but I think it was right around the time that I had auditioned for a student film, an NYU student film. I auditioned for the part of a dead body, and I didn't get the job. For a student film, no pay, and you don't get the job as a dead body, that's pretty low. And so I wasn't feeling particularly good about my chances as an actor, and myself in general. So the phone rang, and there was a voice that said, hi, this is Kit Carson. Is Bill Moseley there? And I went, and I had heard of the name Kit Carson, because I knew he was married to Karen Black. It was kind of, I don't think he was quite Inquirer type gossip level, but I'd heard that name, and they were kind of a groovy couple or whatever. And so when he said that, my first response was, who is this really? And I could tell back then that it was a long distance call, because those were back in the days when the phone actually sizzled, when it was a long distance call. So I knew it was long distance. So I thought and he said, no, it's really Kit Carson. So I kind of played along with him, although I wasn't really in any mood because of that audition with the dead body. And he said, no, I'd really like you to, we just finished the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. We'd love to have you, we would love to have you read the script. And I said, well, okay. So I gave him my address. And he sent me a copy of the script. I actually got the script, I read it. He said, and also please pay attention to the part of a character called Platehead. And I went, wow, okay, well, all right. So I read it. I didn't know, I thought Platehead would be some little minor character. Well, it turns out Platehead is the precursor to Chop Top. And I read it and I thought, wow, that's a lot of work for Platehead here. I thought it was really funny. It was a really devilishly brilliant script. And so I called the number that was on the script and I got Kit and I said, man, this is great. I think it's hilarious. He goes, oh, really? You think it's funny? That's awesome. That's great. Well, we'll be in touch, you know. And then a week later, I got a call from Canon Films' business department asking me if I wanted to negotiate the contract or if I had an agent. And, you know, and I did not have an agent, but I'd met one at a Christmas party a couple months earlier. So I called her up. She was at William Morris. And I said, would you negotiate a contract for me? And of course, that's free money for her. So she said, sure. So I called Canon back and said, call, you know, Risa Shapiro at William Morris. And they made an offer. And I was convinced that I had some kind of doppelganger, some kind of a twin in Los Angeles that was auditioning, that was taking lunch, it was, you know, see you later, baby, and doing all that, the Hollywood shuffle that I certainly wasn't capable of doing. I had no idea how I was kind of failing toward this job. I mean, I hadn't done anything. It really was just about you know, the manicures. It came down to it. And by golly, I got a call from Risa saying, you know, I'm sorry, I could only get you scale plus 10. And I, you know, at the time I was working as a writer for magazines, and I was averaging maybe $250 a week in New York City. And I said, you know, and it sounded bad, like scale plus 10. Wow, that sounds pretty bad. I said, well, how much is that? And she said, oh, God, it's just only about $1,700 a week. And I went, I think I can handle that. And so that was my contract. I had an 8-week contract running the picture for scale plus 10. They paid me an extra $5,000 to shave my head because Chop Top, all the makeup was, you know, more easily applied on a bald head. And, you know, I was sent down to Texas. I had never met Tobe Hooper. You know, I'd never auditioned. I got the part of, you know, one of the leads in the movie. And still didn't really know why or how. It just felt like a total, you know, win of the lottery or just something completely bizarre and wonderful. And that kind of got me off and running. And that's a really long answer to a pretty short question.
So the inspiration for Chop Top character, though, was this guy you'd met at this job, though, the kind of the sugar guy that you...
No, he actually, the only thing he inspired was disgust. And what he did was basically gave me those, you know, that idea. I mean, that kind of came out of his blather. What inspired Chop Top was, you know, first, foremost, and absolutely Ed Neal's performance as the hitchhiker in the original Chainsaw. I thought his performance was amazing. I still do. He's a great guy. I saw him today. But he is, you know, that's 99% of Chop Top is, you know, whatever, you know, I kind of absorbed from that performance and then, you know, whatever I added to it. But it was, you know, I give all credit to Ed Neal.
Excellent. What you got going on these days? What's on the burner?
Right now, I'm hot because of Devil's Rejects and The House of a Thousand Corpses, the two Rob Zombie movies in which I play Otis B. Driftwood. I just did a movie in Poland in November called 3, which is THR, the number 3 and the letter E. And that is actually coming out, I think, in a couple months, so probably late spring, early summer. It was directed by Robbie Henson. And it's, I think the production company is called Namesake Pictures. And it's a psychological thriller. I play, surprisingly enough, a bad guy.
Anything coming up in the future? Any other projects? Or is there any project that you'd like to get involved in?
Well, you know, I always, you know, I'm always looking for work. That's the job of an actor. I do have a job coming up with Charles Band, good old Charlie Band, Full Moon Pictures. I'm doing a movie with him called Dead Man's Hand in a month or two. I'm doing a short film this coming week in San Francisco. But what I'm looking forward to doing is getting a little bit of time and working on the Cornbugs DVD. That's Cornbugs is a band I have with guitar god Buckethead, and we have 5 CDs out. All of them available on my website, choptopsbbq.com. And right now I am working on our DVD, which is really a lot of fun. It's called Dance Bugs Dance. It's basically me and Buckethead wearing masks, dancing to Cornbugs tunes that are being played on a cheap disco box. As we dance in his father's living room. Well, his nephew, videotapes us. So it's a cheap thrill.
And finally, you probably do a lot of these conventions, I take it. What do you think of Texas Frightmare Weekend?
I think it was great. I didn't really know what to expect. I've been to a couple of other conventions in Texas that weren't anywhere near as big or popular as this. So, I had, let's just say I had the conservative expectations. It really went quite well. Everybody was very friendly and efficient. Everybody, staff and Lloyd, the promoter, and the other guests. The whole thing was just great. And I guess first and foremost, though, the fans were fantastic. Because fans are kind of different in different parts of the country, and for that matter, different parts of the world. And Texas fans are just awesome. I think it's especially cool because this year, 2006, is the 20th anniversary of Chainsaw 2. So it was also cool to have, see Caroline Williams stretch for the first time in a long time, and, Lou Perryman, Bill Johnson, Tom Savini, the king of splatter, who created the Chop Top makeup. And then because of our relationship on Chainsaw 2, when he got to direct the remake of Night of the Living Dead, I was his first choice for the part of Johnny. So, it all kind of builds and ripples out and everything. So it's been great. I've had a great time. I love hanging out with Sid Haig too. We're buddies from, the different movies, the Rob Zombie movies, and, going to conventions and stuff. So it's been a ball.
Well, we wish you continued success.
Yep.
So for the would-be actor, whether it be in the horror genre or otherwise, you have any advice?
Well, it's funny because acting is a really brutal career to pursue. A lot of times I think maybe the public would think I can do that when they look at a movie, or maybe they think, geez, that's not so easy, try digging a ditch. I have tried digging a ditch, and I would much prefer to act, by the way. But acting is really hard once you get the job, but getting the job is really the work of the actor. The professional actor, like the movie or TV actor. And it's tough. I mean, what I ended up doing was living in New York and then moving to Los Angeles. I think the one piece of advice is, certainly you gotta be very persistent, and you have to know patience and perseverance. The other thing that really has helped me more than any kind of technique advice or anything is don't make acting or showbiz your higher power. I mean, you got to find something that gives you your sense of value or self-worth somewhere other than show business. I mean, still to me, one of the most frightening images, and it's one of the most honest and frightening images of showbiz that I've ever seen, was when Sally Fields won the Academy Award for, I think it was Norma Ray. And she stood on the stage and she looked out at all the producers and everybody, and she went, "You like me, you really like me." And it was just so fucking frightening. Because, so many actors just end up like, making their success or failure, really the measure of their worth. And that's very dangerous.
Excellent.
Cool.